David, in the biblical story of his encounter with Goliath, demonstrated an understanding and perspective that many in his time did not possess. This narrative, detailed in 1 Samuel 17, reveals not only an epic confrontation between the Israelite army and the Philistines but also a profound lesson about courage and faith. The situation unfolds in the valley of Elah, southwest of Jerusalem, near Gath. Here, Saul and his Israelite army faced the Philistines, with the valley dividing them. Goliath, the gigantic Philistine champion, stood as a formidable challenge, issuing his daily challenge for 40 days, urging Israel to send him a worthy opponent. The reaction of the Israelite army, including King Saul, to Goliath's defiant words is recorded in 1 Samuel 17:11. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Goliath's imposing figure, described with his heavy armor and large spear, symbolized a real and palpable danger. This giant, standing between 9 and 11 feet tall, instilled fear even in the bravest. In this context of fear and discouragement, David, a young shepherd, arrives at the camp to deliver supplies to his older brothers. Upon hearing Goliath's provocations and seeing the soldiers' fear, David faces a situation that would challenge his own bravery and faith. Despite his youth and being belittled by his older brother Eliab, as described in 1 Samuel 17:28-30, David displays a different perspective. He inquires what will be done for the man who defeats the Philistine and removes the disgrace from Israel. This act of questioning and challenging the situation reveals David's fearless nature. King Saul, upon hearing David's words, summons him and they discuss the challenge. Saul doubts David's ability to face Goliath due to his youth and lack of battle experience, as mentioned in 1 Samuel 17:33. However, David persists, eventually convincing Saul to let him face the giant. Despite obtaining the king's consent, David continues to face scorn and underestimation, even from Goliath himself, who ridicules him for his youthful appearance and compares him to a dog, as narrated in 1 Samuel 17:42-43. The question arises, why did David, in the face of all contempt and doubt, continue to advance courageously? The answer lies in his deep trust in the true and living God. David did not see the situation through the eyes of human fear but through faith in God, who had been with him in his past experiences as a shepherd. This trust in God allowed him to face Goliath not as an insurmountable challenge but as an opportunity to demonstrate God's faithfulness and power. In the broader context, the story of David and Goliath teaches us about the value of faith and trust in God in the face of overwhelming challenges. Often, like the Israelites, we may feel intimidated by the giants in our lives, whether personal challenges, complex problems, or situations that seem insurmountable. However, David's story reminds us that with faith in God, we can face and overcome these challenges. In 1 Timothy 4:12, we are exhorted not to let anyone look down on us for being young but to set an example in speech, conduct, love, faith, and purity. This is applicable not only to young people but to anyone who may feel underestimated or undervalued. In summary, the story of David and Goliath is a powerful reminder that our faith in God and our trust in His promises are the keys to overcoming life's obstacles and challenges. It encourages us to look beyond our perceived limitations and trust that with God, all things are possible. In the biblical account of David and Goliath, David stood out not only for his physical bravery but also for his unique spiritual perspective. While other Israelite warriors focused on the immediate dangers of battle or potential spoils of victory, David cared about something deeper, the honor of the living God and the reputation of Israel. This focus reveals that David was a man after God's own heart, concerned with what mattered to God and viewing problems from a spiritual rather than a material or carnal perspective. In 1 Samuel 17, when the men of Israel described Goliath simply as this man, David referred to him as this uncircumcised Philistine. While the Israelites saw Goliath as a challenge to Israel, David viewed him as a challenge to the armies of the living God. This difference in perception shows that David saw situations from the Lord's perspective, while the men of Israel only saw them from a human viewpoint. Even in his direct confrontation with Goliath, David maintained this perspective. The Philistine challenged David with threats of violence and humiliation, promising to give his flesh to the birds of the sky and the beasts of the field. But David responded with unshakable faith in the Lord, saying, "You come to me with a sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." This statement not only demonstrated his bravery but also his deep trust that God was in control of the situation. David, despite being a teenager with a possibly not yet matured voice, confronted Goliath with a bold and faith-filled declaration. His proclamation that the Lord would deliver Goliath into his hands reflected a confidence that went beyond his ability to fight. He understood that he was a representative of the Lord of hosts, the God who commands heavenly armies. This perspective transformed what was a physical battle into a manifestation of God's power and sovereignty. By declaring that he would strike down and behead Goliath, David showed a confidence emanating from his faith in God. His courage came from this faith, and his motivation was not personal gain but the desire to honor and glorify the Lord. His ultimate goal was to demonstrate the divine presence in Israel, a presence that should be acknowledged by all. The incident of David and Goliath made David famous, but his focus was not on personal recognition. David's encounter with Goliath, as recounted in 1 Samuel 17, showcases more than just a physical battle. It illustrates the power of unwavering faith in God. This story teaches us that such faith empowers us to stand against enemies and temptations, reminding us that the battles we face are not ours alone but are under God's active control and presence. 1 John 5:4 in the Amplified Bible underscores a fundamental truth: those born of God overcome the world, and this victory is conquered and overcome through our persistent and ongoing faith in Jesus, the Son of God. David's confrontation with Goliath exemplifies this principle. David's courage against Goliath was rooted not in his own strength or skill but in his faith in God and his past experiences of divine providence. This is evident in his conversation with King Saul, where David recounts his past victories over a lion and a bear while protecting his father's sheep. These experiences, where God protected and granted him victory, strengthened David's confidence that God would also deliver him from Goliath. David understood that his showdown with Goliath was not merely a physical challenge but a spiritual battle. He perceived Goliath's challenge not just as a threat to Israel but as a defiance of the armies of the living God. This spiritual perspective set David apart from Saul and the other Israelite soldiers. While Saul focused mainly on the physical aspects of the battle, David recognized the spiritual dimension and God's sovereignty in the situation. David's preparation for facing Goliath was not accidental. It was the result of his faithfulness in previously assigned tasks, like shepherding his father's sheep. God uses our faithfulness in small tasks to prepare us for greater challenges. If David had shied away from facing the lion or the bear, he would not have been ready to confront Goliath. His level of faith and trust in those moments was crucial for his courage against the Philistine giant. David's progression in boldness is notable. First, he suggested that someone should fight Goliath for a just cause. Then, he offered to fight Goliath himself. And finally, he confidently declared that he would kill Goliath. Unbeknownst to David, when facing lions and bears as a shepherd, God was preparing him to face a giant. We often do not recognize God's purpose in our preparation, but David could see retrospectively how past experiences had equipped him for this critical moment. 2 Timothy 4:16-17 echoes this truth. Even when no one supported Paul at his first trial and everyone deserted him, the Lord stood by him, strengthened him, and enabled him to proclaim the gospel to the Gentiles. Similarly, David stood firm against Goliath, resisting the temptation to flee and trusting that the Lord would back him up. Ephesians 6:13 exhorts us to put on the full armor of God to withstand and stand firm on the day of evil. David, armed only with a sling and a stone, symbolizes this spiritual truth. His victory over Goliath was not due to physical strength but his faith in God and his willingness to act on that faith. The story concludes with David triumphing over Goliath, an outcome many deemed impossible. Just as David ran towards the battle line to face the Philistine, we too are called to confront our challenges with faith, trusting that God will lead us to victory. Romans 8:31 reinforces this idea. If God is for us, who can be against us? This truth assures us that by walking in faith, we can overcome any challenge, trusting that God is with us and will guide us to victory. In 1 Corinthians 15:57, we are reminded of the victory we have as conquerors through our Lord Jesus Christ. This verse encourages us to have courage, an essential quality for Christians, which calls us to obey like Abraham, to serve like Joshua, to rebuke sin like Stephen, and to speak the truth like Paul. This kind of courage is what allowed David to stand firm and conquer a great victory for the people of God, an example that urges us to stand firm for God, following Jesus, and standing up for what is right. Courage, in its essence, involves standing firm when everyone wants to flee, speaking when everyone is afraid to speak, and acting when everyone is paralyzed by fear. It means to act in the face of danger, maintaining character and moral integrity when others are tempted to compromise theirs. Understanding that we all experience fear at some point is crucial. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to overcome our feelings of fear and move forward to do what we know is right. The motivations for having courage are diverse and powerful. First, as we belong to Jesus, we should not be afraid. Second, God will vindicate us. What is hidden will be seen, and what is covered will be revealed. Third, not even death can truly harm us. As Matthew 10:28 says, we should not fear those who can kill the body but not the soul. Fourth, God always remains close to us. Even the hairs of our head are all counted, indicating His intimate and close care for us. Fifth, we must believe in God's sovereignty and trust that He rules our lives with loving hands. Sixth, Paul's warnings, especially in his advice to Timothy, show why courage is needed. Paul warns that a time will come when people will not tolerate sound doctrine and will turn to myths and human fictions. 2 Timothy 4:3-4. Seventh, courage is crucial in the era we live in, where the pressure to conform is immense. Matthew 10:27 encourages us to proclaim on the rooftops what we are told in the dark, symbolizing the importance of speaking openly and bravely. Therefore, we must resist the spirit of the times and not give in to cowardice. Being brave and standing firm in our faith and values, especially in the face of opposition or disdain, is a powerful testimony of our trust in God and His truth. This emphasis on courage is vital for living authentically as Christians and being a light in a world that often prefers darkness. The victory we have in Christ empowers us to face these challenges with faith and determination. Following the crowd may seem like the easier path, but it takes true strength and conviction to stand firm in situations where everyone else turns away or remains silent. The call to be brave is not limited to monumental moments in our lives, but extends to our everyday life, at work, at school, in social interactions. Daily, we face choices that test our courage and integrity. Choosing the right path, speaking the truth, standing up for those who are unjustly treated, and maintaining integrity, even when it might cost us something, are true acts of bravery. The story of David and Goliath is a reminder that sometimes we are called to face giants in our own lives, challenges that may seem insurmountable. However, like David, if we put our faith in God and trust in His power more than in our own abilities, we can overcome any obstacle. This does not mean that we will be exempt from fear, but that we will not allow fear to paralyze us or prevent us from doing what is right. True bravery is not born of our own ability but from our relationship with God. It is He who strengthens us, guides us, and enables us to face life's challenges with confidence and hope. By putting our faith in God and allowing Him to direct our paths, we find an inexhaustible source of courage and strength to face any situation. The story of David and Goliath also teaches us that with God on our side, no challenge is too great to face. God calls us to be brave, not by our own strength, but by the strength He provides us. When we trust in this truth, we are empowered to live with courage and purpose, regardless of the challenges we face. In summary, courage in the Christian life is a combination of faith, trust in God, and the willingness to act according to that faith. It means making difficult decisions, facing challenging situations, and standing firm in our values and beliefs, even when it's hard. In doing so, we not only live lives that reflect our faith in God, but we also become examples and sources of inspiration for others who may be struggling with their own giants. And so, we come to the end of this presentation. Thank you for being part of our channel, a space where we seek to share wisdom and reflections on faith. I send you a warm greeting and a big hug. Until next time, and may God bless you.